featuring top 10s, live plays, contests, and more.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the last thing from the Dice Tower Spring Spectacular. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Roy Kennedy.
I'm Chris Yee.
I'm Mike Delisio.
And I'm here too. I'm Z Garcia.
Folks, today we're talking about our top 10 games everybody should play at least once. So I think, we talked about this a little bit, but how our definitions and how we applied it, because I don't think anyone here is going to apply it exactly the same way. So I throw it to you, Roy. How did you decide what went on this list?
So for me, I just picked games that I think are really good and games that are really enjoyable, and you should try it at least once, so that way, you might like it more. But even if you're not sure if it's a game that you would like, you should try it because it could be a thing that you would enjoy from here on out.
All right, Chris?
I think for me, some of these are going to be very light. Some of these are going to be very heavy, right? And when we talked about this is not literally everyone. I think that our audience is basically people who watch the Dice Tower, right?
Did you read the thing that says everyone? Everyone should try it at least once.
And so I know that these aren't going to appeal to everyone, but these are, in my mind, exceptional games that really bring out a lot of fun experience at the table, not necessarily just because it's a good game. And so I wanted to focus on that table experience that I think everyone should get to have.
Mike?
I looked over Chris's shoulder and just took his list. No, what I did was I went for experiences. All of my games, when I describe them, are going to be a particular type of experience that I think would be something everyone should try to experience at least once.
They're all exit games, so you can only play them once.
Correct. You all destroy them at the end.
Z, I see you've been shaking your head. What did you do?
I don't know. Shake my head is what I do. I actually wrote down, when I started the list, started thinking about the list, I wrote down some sort of rules I wanted to follow and different things I wanted to end up on the list. And I broke it down into 3 things that I think should be featured on a list like this. The first one is classic games you should know. If you're going to be a gamer, if you're going to want to have some sort of idea of what gaming is, why it's where it's at, all of that, there's some games on this list that fall into that category. Category
Good
2,
rule.
games that greatly represent whatever it is they do. And so this is, the first one could be seen as this is kind of best of the best. The first one's sort of like first of the best, right? And then the third one is games that do something so different, that are so neat, that are so unique, that you should try them. Those are the ones I don't necessarily think you'll play more than once, but I think you should play them once. That's kind of where I'm at.
My process was the same as Z's, but he said it better than me.
Well, I'm going to say it a little bit more succinctly, I think. I picked games that will make you a well-rounded gamer.
What are you trying to say? Is that a fat joke?
Yes. And since you are, we talk about these games so very often, I think that a lot of these games are games that you know and have heard about, but there's a chance you haven't played them, and I think you should try them at least once to then, again, go back to being a well-rounded gamer. The game pyramid, 4 square games a day, something like that.
Have you seen a round pyramid lately? I don't understand the analogies here, Tom.
That's
You're
a prism,
crossing
son.
paths.
That's what you call a cone.
Technically, we're 2 rectangles and 3 squares, so...
We're a
Let's
rhombus.
just get on this list so that we can properly acclaim each other on our wise choices.
Let's go. Great. All the numbers aren't in here because we moved them. Number 10.
Roy, the audio's off. Roy, the audio's off, and you need to start over.
I will unmute myself. Hey everybody! So this is a social deduction game. Basically, you guys all see that it is Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. The reason that I picked this one is because I really thought there should be a social deduction game on here, but even if you don't enjoy the social deduction genre, this is a game that I've had wide success with a large variety. I've played it with friends, I played it with family members, I played it with aunts and uncles who wouldn't normally like this sort of thing, and it works out very well. And the fact is, even if you don't like social deduction, this is a game that you could play the forensic scientist and maybe lead other people to who the person is that is the murderer that you try to figure out. And there's a lot of people out there that find that, I guess, that crime scene investigation theme intriguing. So I think Deception, Murder in Hong Kong is a game you should play at least once to see if that it's a theme and the mechanisms are something that would jive with you. So that's my number 10.
Very good, very good. That's one I haven't played, Roy. And so if
You
this
have
is a
to
game
play it
that-
at least once.
Yes. You're not a well-rounded gamer. This is outrageous.
I'm very round, but I'm interested in it. My number 10, I'm going to use this fancy official Dice Tower Top 10 clipboard. I'm very excited to do that. In fact, I don't actually have a list written on here.
I like it. That's my favorite game, Chris. You got my favorite game on there.
My number 10
Fantastic.
My number 10 is a two-player head-to-head card game called Mandala. This is a game that I think you're going to hear this phrase. I'm going to try not to say it repeatedly ad nauseum, but it's a game that does a lot with very little. And I think that this is one of the best two-player experiences that you'll have with the card game. There's 120 cards in the game, and they're all just colors. You place the card into one of 3 different spaces, and what you do wildly affects what the other player is going to do, and you will stare at each other multiple times throughout the game and say, "No, don't place it there. Why did you put yellow in the middle? Oh, now I need to place reds. I wish I had more reds I could place in a different area." And it's to me an incredible example of elegant design and a really nice experience where you and the other person are creating a very unique, weird time together that you're going to remember. You're going to have stories and talk about later. So for that reason, I think everyone should try at least once Mandala.
You think Mandala's going to create stories?
Well, the stories of like not
Once
in
I
the
played
game.
an abstract game, it was fun.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I think of very specific moments in this game where I had a handful of yellows. I need to add them to one particular area, and that card gets added to a different part of the circle. I can no longer play yellows where I want them to, and I don't know. It's you walk away from it and you think, oh, if this had come out a little bit different, I would have so much more. I would have had a different time, and I don't know. Maybe story. This is not some sort of epic space theme game. I'm sorry, Z, but I have fun with it.
Wait, do you know Z?
He's trolling.
I'm glad you like it, Chris. I also like it.
I know you do. You could criticize me for stories, though.
I also like many other card games exactly like this one.
All right. Come on, Mike.
Once upon a time, I led the trick with the green. No. All right.
Man, you're such a mean person. I need
What?
that be nice to Mike note. There you go.
All right. My number 10 is my dexterity game experience. I said I was coming with experience. This is my dexterity game experience. My number 10 is Crokinole. And the reason why I think it's on this list is I don't think everyone's going to want to own this because these are big boards that you have to buy. They're not cheap, but they're great games to play like at conventions or if you have a friend that has a Crokinole board. This game reminds me of when I was a kid in elementary school during recess. We would all kind of race to get to the carom boards where you'd have the little cue sticks, you'd be
Yes.
playing carom, right? And when I first saw a Crokinole board, I was like, man, it brought back all these great memories when I was a kid of playing those carom boards. So I think Crokinole is a game everyone should at least try once, whether it's at a convention or whatever it may be, even if you don't necessarily have the space in your house for one. I feel like it does a really nice job of kind of giving you that dexterity experience. So that's my number 10, Crokinole.
Should we
Mike,
say
that is a really good pick.
Should we
So
say if
far.
there's games on other people's lists that we haven't tried at all? Because I've never played Crokinole.
Oh.
You should try it. I agree
yes.
with Mike that it's an experience. You should be aware of you know
Yeah.
what that's like. Yeah.
You got one in the library, baby.
Oh,
Yeah.
snap.
Add it to the Catch-A-Palooza list.
Woo!
Let's go. It's me. Great.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's go.
My number 10 is chess. I
Oh.
think everybody should play chess at least once. I know chess can be intimidating. I know that if you watch a TV show, perhaps on Netflix, about chess and how extremely seriously it's taken, that can also push you away from even giving it a try. But I think it's something you should be familiar with. Again, lots of the games on my list are not games that I think, like Roy said at the beginning, that you should try because you might love. I think a lot of these games, unless you are, like the truest definition of an omni gamer, I think a lot of these games will be a one play. You should play them once. And I think chess could be that for a lot of people. But you should still try it. Just don't try with like a grandmaster. That's not going to be fun. But learn it. Try it with
Yeah, but
a
you brag
family
about
member,
that the
with
rest
a
of your
sibling.
life. I
Yeah,
played
that's
once
true.
and lost, but it was to the Grandmaster.
So my
That would
true
be
skills haven't
great,
really
yeah.
been tested.
That's true, absolutely. So there you go. Number 10, chess for me.
Thank you, Amelia. She says she loves Mandela, and she's super glad that Chris Yee is weighing in on these.
There you go.
Woo! All right. I agree with Z a lot. Chess was on my short list. Actually, so was Crokinole. My number 10, though, it's a little... I didn't know what to put exactly for this one. I almost put hearts, but I'm going to put diamonds. And the reason I'm putting diamonds here is because I think everybody should play a trick-taking game at least once. And diamonds is, I think, the most accessible of the published ones. Yes, you could, play with a regular deck of cards, hearts, spades, etc. But so that's the reason I'm picking diamonds, but you could put in here any trick-taking game. But I think there's a lot of people who have never played one, and we talk about them a lot, and you may not like it. Not everyone likes trick-taking games, but I think you should try one, and then it's helpful later on when someone says Trump, when in regards to games, what's being talked about, or suits of cards, or following the color that's led. Knowing how to play one of these games really opens up a whole world to you. Yeah. So, again, that's why I picked diamonds. I just thought it was, of all the ones out there, I think it's the most accessible if you've never played a trick-taking game before. That's also not insane like, the Dwarf King and all those. Sure. I mean, those are silly, but they're also... Can you think of a better one to put on?
I did the same thing with this category as you did with chess. It would just be like right off the list. I don't have a trick-taking game on my list, but diamonds is a good pick. I might have gone for like a traditional one, but barring that, yeah, diamonds is a really solid pick.
Right. I was this close to putting spades on my list for that reason, and so for someone who is experienced, Tom, with trick-taking games, would you still say diamonds? You should try that one at least once?
No, I don't think I would say necessarily diamonds in that case. I don't know what I would pick. I'm just saying I think I thought about Tichu briefly, but Tichu's its own category.
Yeah.
So I picked diamonds instead. Also, Tichu introduces you to people. The same type of people who play Tichu were on that Queen's Gambit show.
Yeah.
I think
so what you're saying, Tom, is this is not a game for everyone to play once.
Diamonds is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, not Tichu, though.
Wow, don't try to trick me with your logic, Chris.
Wow,
Go to number
wow.
9, boy.
Objection! Leading!
Welcome to the
All right, let's go to my number 9 here. So for me, I wanted to put a really solid abstract game on the list. And so the one I decided to go with is Onitama. I think Onitama is a great abstract game that has some interesting concepts in it. It still has that movement on the board, like the game that Z mentioned, chess, but this basically has the moves you have for the different units are going to switch back and forth. And I've had a ton of fun playing this game with like my kids and my friends, and Me and Mike even played the app on a plane once. This game is a lot of fun to play, and I think it's one that you should really try out at least one time, just because if you're into abstract games, this is going to be one that's easy and accessible for you, and if you've never tried that many abstract games before, this is one that has a different feel to it that is really enjoyable. So my number 9 is Onitama.
Very cool.
That's good.
Good pick.
We can't argue.
Yes.
My number 9 on my official clipboard is Mike is Dead to Me.
Ah,
That's my number
game,
1.
Chris. That's
You need
very
to
underrated.
play that more, Chris.
All right.
It's
My number
trending on
9
BGG.
My number 9 is a game that has very few components, and the ones that it has are fantastic. It is a almost party game, and it's called Skull. Skull to me is so fast. It's very easy to teach, and it's all of the joys of a game, kind of like Liar's Dice, but with fewer components and less explanation. I think that a table of people sitting around playing Skull, right? You put a coaster down in front of you, and you say, does everyone have a certain number of them, or a certain number of them that have a skull on it, or are most of them blanks? And that number just has to keep going up as it goes around the table. And something about that is just so simple, and yet it's a very great experience where you say, there's no way that all 4 of us put skulls down. No, I feel good about that. And then you reveal. It's something about that is so pleasant that even if you're a hardened gamer that only likes serious games, you still giggle at it. You still have fun. And it's, once again, a game that's really about the joy of the people around the table and less so just the game itself. But I think the game is still solid. So for that reason, that's my number 9, Skull.
That's a good one.
I love Skull. I really do. It's just like you said, it's so simple. It's a very condensed experience, right? I like it. All right, my number 9 is what I'm calling my creative thinking experience game, and this is Dixit. I think Dixit is a game that lets you learn more about the people that you're playing with. And I think that that's one of the great things that board games can do, is that you can learn, even if you're playing with people you've never met before, it's a great way to kind of learn some things about them. But even people that you have known for years, family members, good friends, Dixit is a way that you can kind of use that knowledge to your advantage, perhaps, or have it used against you. And so Dixit, we just played it, a version of it here live during the Spring Spectacular, and hopefully if you watched that, you saw what a great experience could be had. I mean,
and me and Mike ran up the track.
We did. We really did. And all of us I think all of us that were playing it had played it a number of times, and there's still, that game just evokes a feeling unlike any other game I ever play. Every time I play Dixit, it's a feeling of familiarity, of comfort. It's not this kind of backstabby, hardcore gaming experience. It's just pleasant. It's fun. And it really allows you to think creatively, which I enjoy. So that's my number 9, Dixit.
That's a good pick, too. All right, my number 9, we are still in the classics category here for sure. And my number 9 is Catan, the classic for many people who play the kinds of games we'll be talking about mostly. Catan is a game that, like many popular things that have now, that are a little long in the tooth, let's say, now gets a lot of, poo-pooed on. But it's a strong design. It's perhaps not the latest and shiniest thing, but it's one you should be familiar with if you have sort of a certain appreciation of board gaming. I sort of hesitated to call it a certain respect of board gaming, but maybe that too. Just because it is an important game in the little story that we have with board gaming. It's fun, it's interesting, it's not a game that you would be playing, I think, merely as an exercise for familiarity. I think it's one that could very well surprise you and hook you. It certainly did for many, many people. So there you go, Catan. I suspect it'll show up on somebody else's list. So that's it for me, my number 9.
I didn't put this or any of those other gateway games on my list because I figured most people already play them, so it didn't need to be on a list like this. I don't need to persuade people to play Catan or to give it a try.
I definitely played this more than once.
That's a valid point.
I disagree with you, and I'll explain to you why when it may come up on my list later.
With me or Tom?
No, with Tom.
Okay, well then I don't care. My number 9 is the most maligned game on this list by the general public, for sure. I've heard many a sermon preached against this game, and this is Dungeons and Dragons.
My favorite board game.
Yeah, well, whatever. It says top 10 games. It didn't say anything about board games. But here, even if you're a board gamer, I think, and again, just like most games on the list, it doesn't have to be this one exactly. It could be another role-playing game. But I think you should give Dungeons and Dragons a shot. There's a lot of stuff in our hobby that comes from this. And even if it's a one-time role-playing experience, you hear lots of stories about it. It's part of, Stranger Things was part of the plot and all. But there's so much caricature done on role-playing games that I think a lot of people think they know what a role-playing experience is like and haven't actually done it. And it's a very different thing. Like, I very rarely have seen any of those shows or movies or things about it where it was even remotely realistic. At least I felt from my experience. And I think that this is something that board gamers should try. So anyway, Dungeons and Dragons. So don't be afraid. If your character dies, you don't have to quit the group.
It creates such amazing stories, and that's one of the main reasons that it's very interesting.
So, all right, Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
All right, my number 8. So I like games where there's cards and combos and all of those things, and there's a lot of collectible card games out there. But this is the first game that took kind of like that building up of combos and deck building and put it into a game. This is the first one, and if you haven't played it, there's tons of games that have spawned off of it. My number 8 is Dominion. I think Dominion is a great game that is still a game you should definitely try. Even if you've played other deck building games, you should still go back and try out Dominion and see the game that started off the whole deck building craze. And this still stands up super solid with a lot of the other deck building games out there. You might think, oh, Dominion started it all, it's been surpassed by other things. No, there's tons of amazing and great combos, and the way the game just all comes together in Dominion is a great experience. So I think everybody should play it at least once, even if you go back to your other deck builders afterwards. If you haven't played Dominion, you should definitely try it out. So that's why it's my number 8.
Very cool. Very cool. My number 8 is a game called World's Fair 1893. This game is gorgeous. It has a really fun and kind of unique theme, and it has very interactive gameplay. I think its area majority is one of my favorite mechanisms. I think that this can appeal to tons of people because even though there's downtime as you're waiting for other people to put out their influence cubes and get majorities in the different areas, every card in this game has a different historical fact, and you can say, hey, what are the different exhibits that were at the World's Fair? And I feel like this is something that people can look at and say, what is meaningful flavor text? And what is meaningful interactions with other players as you can vie for stronger influence, move people's cubes around. It's somewhat mean, but it's not very. It's mostly just very smooth playing. And I think that you're going to get an experience from this that is an amalgam of different things that makes for a very unique experience that's worth trying out. So that's why my number 8 is World Fair, 1893.
Wow, that feels a little esoteric, I think. Wow, okay.
I think it's that good, though. It's that clean and that fun.
I'm going to disagree on the everyone should play this at least once. I feel like I like the game. I just feel like there's a lot of other games that give you the same feel.
Listen, Chris, those cubes are really drawing me in,
I know you're a cube man.
I always feel like it tells a story. My number 8 is what I'm calling Z, look. You're being a little bit harsh.
Get the clipboard
I
out.
want to call you out here, Z, but this is getting a little ridiculous now. My number 8 is what I'm calling my team-based party experience. My number 8 is Time's Up.
What, are you running workshops? What's going on?
Welcome to my base experience.
I've told you that all of these are what I'm calling experiences. All of these are games I think that are the best example of what experience I'm trying to describe that, everyone should try at least once. And so this would be like the party game where you're playing in teams. So Time's Up. To me, this is the classic example. As a matter of fact, if I had just said team-based party game, I have a feeling everyone would have guessed Time's Up, right? It's kind of no.
Taboo.
There's so many party games for teams. Almost all of them are for teams.
Please.
In the Venn
Time's Up
diagram of
is-
games I'm good at, this is not in it.
No, I'm not saying it's good. And look, I will tell you this. This list will be the furthest from any of the lists I make of games that are necessarily games that I love. That's not what the list was about to me. This was about games that I feel like people should try at least once. I played Time's Up for the first time, I want to say 2 years ago. And I don't know that I really want to play it again, but I felt like, yeah, I needed to play this. I'm glad I played this. I see what the fuss is about. I get it. It was very, very unique to that experience. And so that's why I feel like, and just what you said, Z, tons of games like this, but I feel like this is the purest version of it, to my mind, that I've played. That's why I'm choosing Time's Up as my number 8.
That makes sense. I get that a game like this should, and plus, there's so many folks who actively avoid these kinds of games.
Right.
You know, they're sort of like, it's almost like they're scared that it's going to stain their gaming record or something.
Right.
Like it's a party game, you know.
Right.
Play. Calm down.
Exactly.
It's a silly time.
Yeah.
Shut up about it. Anyway,
Time's Up, Z.
time is up. Okay, then I'm done. That's my number 8. Tom? Oh no, wait, I gotta say it. No, my number 8 is actually a crossover with Roy for Dominion. The same
Wow.
number.
Oh, snap.
You already knew that.
It'll be on everybody
Wait,
else's list
Roy.
higher. They were
Wait,
way too
Roy.
quiet. It's on everybody else's list higher.
Roy already said it. Now, again, it's not my favorite deck building game, and this is on the list more of it falls into my one category. Like a game that did something first. You should play it out of, again, an understanding of where something came from. It might be your favorite, but it's not for me, certainly my favorite deck building game. But it is one that is interesting to try and see what it did first and how it did it. If you can remove your knowledge of, so many other deck building games. But yeah, number 8, Dominion for me as well.
Mike, what was the category of your number 8 again?
It was team-based party experience.
Team-based party experience. Fine.
That could be the title of a great game.
It could be.
Party game, team-based party
All
experience.
right. Well, no, that's my number 8. And so my number 8, though, is going to be Codenames.
Okay.
And
okay.
here's why I pushed Codenames on the list, because I thought about Dixit, I thought about Time's Up and things like that. But I feel like most people play or have played a party game. Codenames is a different level. It brings you into that more of a different kind of communication. And yes, I know Password did it in the 60s, but it brings it up a little bit more into that modern phase. And so that's why I put Codenames on my list. Codenames can then take you in an offshoot where you play games like The Mind, or it can take you play more things like Cryptic and games like that. But I feel like Codenames is one everyone should try, even if you're someone who disdains silly party games, in which case I don't know that I want to game with you anyway. But if you did, you might like Codenames despite all that. You should at least try it once.
Right.
Great game.
The password is Mike's pick is better.
Time's up, Mike. Time's up.
It's not about the better game. These are games people should try once.
Mike's
Correct.
game was better than your game.
Correct. Yeah.
No,
I'm not
Codenames is
arguing
better.
that.
Repeat my-
Codenames is better. Number. Hey, I'll start now. You guys are distracting me. Let me switch to my number here. Okay, cool. Hey, my number 7. Come on.
Oh, this is off the chain. Go ahead, Roy.
Listen.
He's putting in a superhero level effort over there, folks. Give Roy some love. He's doing
Okay.
a lot.
My number
Yeah.
7 is a game where there are cards out on the table and you're drafting those cards to try to set collect them and then play them out in different areas, not routes, but to control different areas. This is Ethnos. This is a fantasy-based game where you're trying to do different sorts of area controls with all sorts of different fantasy races with different powers. And I think this is a game that is really enjoyable, and I think a lot of people haven't tried it. And I think this is a game that people might not have caught or might not have seen, and I feel if you try it at least once, you'll probably really enjoy the game because it just plays so quickly as you're drafting all these different sets of different characters or different like races that have different powers, and then it's super simple area control as you're placing the different units out on the board, trying to figure out how to outsmart your opponents on where you're going and moving things around so you can win for each of the different ages. So I think Ethnos is a great game to try at least once, and that is why it is my number 7. What do you think, Chris?
Of Ethnos? Of Ethnos? I disagree with this one. I think it's a very good game, but I think you don't have to play it.
You know,
Paulo Mori would disagree.
Who?
Paulo Mori.
Paulo Mori.
Roy, I think that's a dumb pick. Why don't you just go ahead and skip my number 7 then? My number 7 is Ethnos.
Wow.
In your
Really?
Is that why you said, what do you think?
Yes.
Oh, come on.
I just noticed that it was right under mine, so...
Man.
My number 7 is Ethnos because, as Roy alluded to, a lot of people were turned off to it by the art. And if you weren't turned off by the art on the cover of the box, you were turned off by what was actually inside the box because there was a disconnect between, you know, big epic Final Fantasy battle and then like stacking little discs on regions. The game's somewhere in between those two. It's such a clean, fun game, and I think a lot of people, didn't give this one a try, but I think it does some things that are really great. You know, use 6 different factions each game out of the ones that come in the box. The game almost teaches itself, and so people will come into it and say, well, how do you play? You know, play a group of cards or draw some on your turn. I think that people should experience how fast this is. I consistently play this game quicker than a game like Ticket to Ride, and so
Better than Ticket to Ride.
For this, for the purpose of this list, I agree with Roy on
full
what he
stop.
said.
Better than Ticket to Ride, full stop.
I haven't played Full Stop. Is that a new map, Roy? Or
It's an expansion of Can't Stop.
Yes, exactly.
Full stop.
Can't stop playing Ethnos.
No, it's great. So yeah, my number 7 as well.
Actually, you guys have convinced me, or Chris convinced me.
What?
That no, because he gave a good reason. Because a lot of people are turned away from Ethnos. You should try it, despite how bad it looks.
Roy
that's
did say
actually
that.
good. Makes less.
I said you just didn't listen to anything I said. I think is what the real truth is.
Well, once you
I
start
wasn't-
talking about this garbage that it's better than Ticket to Ride, I was out.
I said that after
just
Chris's
happened.
pick. I'm so
Yeah, that
confused.
I
wasn't
retroactively
actually-
ignored it.
I wasn't actually that interested in playing Ethnos, but now I want to play it just because I want it to teach it. I want it to teach me the game by itself. So I'm excited about that. That's a new technology I wasn't aware of.
I will
my
never
number-
understand. I will never understand the hate that Ethnos gets for its look and its pieces. It just baffles me.
Really?
It's like people talk about it in hushed whispers, like it's
Yeah,
the Hunchback of Paulo Mori. Like it's not that unattractive. The
It's
pieces, they're so garish. I'm like, they're plastic bits. Like no one looks at Ticket to Ride and they're like, these plastic trains are horrid. It's like
I think it's
I don't
mostly
get it. I
the
truly don't get it.
the dark art mixed with the bright graphic design is the juxtaposition of that is what throws people off.
It just looks a little outdated to me. That's the only thing. It just looks like it came out maybe 2 decades ago, but it doesn't look awful. My number 7 is what I'm calling my social deduction experience. Roy actually picked a game that I like better than the one that I chose, but the one that I think everyone should play at least once is Werewolf. And this is a game that's similar to kind of what Z was talking about before, is that this is a game that scares a lot of people off. And I know that because I was one of them. And the first time I played an actual game of Werewolf, like a full game, was moderated by Tom on the channel. And it's because I had been intimidated by it. I had been intimidated by, it feels almost like a world that you have to be invited to, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't understand it. I didn't really know what it was about. I felt like I would feel like I'm ruining the game for other people. Don't let that stuff get in your way. Because unless you're playing with jerks, they're going to teach you the game. They're going to give you a level of comfort. And it is an experience that is unlike any other experience that you're likely to have. You may not love the experience. You may absolutely adore it. and it might open up a whole new world for you, but you should try it at least once. There are little kind of gateway introduction versions of it that can kind of get you into it with like One Night Ultimate, and that's fine, but I think you should try an actual moderated game of Werewolf at least once. That's my number 7.
The problem with Werewolf is that it's going to be such a different experience based on that moderation. I guess an RPG, like Tom said, D&D, so I guess that's true for that too. Anyway, my number 7 is again falls very much into the classic category. It also falls into my 3rd category, a game that does something so differently that you should try it, and that's Cosmic Encounter. Cosmic Encounter is a game that doesn't get a lot of games are inspired by, right, Cosmic Encounter, but it feels like not a lot of games are really making the same stew. It still feels different, and it still feels like its own beast, while being an early pioneer in the kinds of games that are so popular right now, you know, having asymmetric powers and having this, negotiation being a part of something bigger and all of these other things. So I think Cosmic Encounter is one that you should not write off because it seems chaotic, which it could be, but I think you should try it and sort of discover if that's, you know, something that you enjoy in it, the self-correcting nature of the game. It's one that there's just so much there, and when you stop and think, this game came out in the late 70s? That's mind-blowing. So, Cosmic Encounter, my number 7.
My number 7, I worry, might be disagreed with heavily, and I don't know about y'all, but from at least the people watching, because I think a lot of people refuse to play this because of how it plays. But I think everyone should try it at least once, and that's Pandemic Legacy. Because Legacy games, and everyone screams, the people who I've seen yell about Legacy games the most have never tried one. They just hear that you can only play it once, they say, as they play most of their games only once before they move on to the next one. And they'll say it has a limited number of plays. I could not bear to destroy components in a game. How, you know, whatever the excuses are. And I'm telling you, you got to play it. It is an experience, and you will remember it for the rest of your life. You really
Would you say
will.
it tells a story, Tom?
I think satisfyingly I could say that.
Mark it down, Chris.
To the detriment of all games before on this list.
If you play Pandemic Legacy just once, isn't that just playing like a regular game of Pandemic, though?
Well, I'm saying once
just got
through the
destroyed, Tom.
campaign.
I was about to say that is like
I was prepared,
12, 13
I was prepared
times.
for this childish argument.
So you should play through a whole so you should play Gloomhaven once, aka the entire thing of Gloomhaven.
Not only that, Roy, I say that if you play Pandemic Legacy, the first game once, it will immediately after that first game, you'll know if you'll like the experience or not. I don't think you need to go through 6, 7 games in to know that.
0 is better.
I would agree with Season 1 because
That's why I said Season 1.
Okay, yeah. Season 1, I would agree with that, right? Because it will do something in the first game to make you say, I want to see more, or no.
I hate Tom Bassett. Yeah, it's one of those two.
Correct.
I want to keep going, or tricked again by that hat-wearing jerk.
Once you start ripping cards, you can't stop.
I don't
Pop.
see. I feel though that like
Pringles.
people say stuff like that, Roy, and it gets people all in a tizzy. They're like ripping cards. You have
not that
to,
big of a
again,
deal.
it's something when you play it. It's a different thing than what you might think.
Here's the unspoken truth about Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
Here we go.
Keep it unspoken.
You don't actually have to rip up the cards. Just like put them away somewhere. Don't let them get mixed in with the ones you're using. Number 7 will shock you.
You could light them on fire, too.
My number 7, Pandemic Legacy.
All right, my number 6. My number 6. My number 6 is a game I really enjoy experiences. And this is a game that I put on the list because I think this is a great experience. And it's kind of interesting. It might not be a game that works 100% of the time for everybody, but I think it's a game that you should try at least once because it's so enjoyable. And this is Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. This game has some really unique and interesting things in it. I haven't seen board games that have like puzzles that you work together on quite like this. I know there's a lot of escape rooms that have some stuff, but this uses an app as well, and you're doing different sliding app puzzles. And if maybe you're put off by the app thing, try it at least once and figure out if it's something that works for you, because the atmosphere that this game creates as you're working together, exploring a mansion tile by tile, uncovering clues about the story and the mystery of what's going on in the game. It just invokes like this interesting, crazy mythos world that you're going through as you're fighting off bad guys, or maybe just questioning different people at a party to figure out who was the person that murdered the guy that's in the basement. But there's all sorts of crazy things that happen, and the scenarios are very different, and you know what you did, Z. It's time to fess up.
I think this is a great pick, especially a good pick if you are also a video gamer, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a nice in between.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not too hard, and there are still people who say that they're turned off by having to use an app in a game. Try it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not every game has to be the game that you see yourself playing in 20 years in case the app is not supported then. Just play it now and enjoy it now. Speaking of games that I see myself playing in 20 years, my number 6 is a game called Dominion. So Dominion is my number 6. I agree with everything that Z said. No, wait. I agree with everything Roy said. Z's dead to me.
Yes.
After his last jokes at my expense.
So I'm the body in the basement. Got it.
This is unraveling the caper of who did it.
It's all about the basement, No, Garcia.
Oh, goodness.
Terrible.
So,
that was weak sauce.
I'm tired of talking about
castles,
Dominion.
moats,
Let's
and
move
generic
on.
medieval world. No, I love Dominion. This is my favorite deck builder. I'm one of those people that falls into that camp. I don't think that there's a better deck builder out there because the genius of Dominion is its restrictions. You can only play one action card per turn. You have to do things in a very specific order. And I think there's something about that meticulous specificity that makes you have to play more clever and try and chain things together. And because of that, I think it's the strongest game because it has the static markets that you purchase from. And because of that, it has nearly infinite replayability, in my opinion. I don't think it's a better deck building game out there. And I think that even though it's kind of this grandfatherly game, it still deserves that respect, even if you don't love it. So my number 6, Dominion.
Wow.
Good.
I can't get behind that pick, Chris, actually. My number 6 is a quadruple crossover and a double number crossover with Mr. Chris E. My number 6 is Dominion, which I'm calling, Z, get ready for it, my deck building experience. So, Dominion... Dominion is a game
That's a
that
curveball.
I will disagree with Chris. I will say there are literally hundreds of thousands of better deck builders out there than Dominion, but this is the one that really started it all, right? You've probably, if you're watching this video, you've probably played a deck builder, but you should play the one that started it. You should play the one that is still fantastic. You should play the one that has multiple expansions that don't feel
Superfluous.
Thank you. This is a game that still has legs. It still brings something to the table. It's definitely not my favorite deck builder. I'm not kidding about that, but it is a fantastic game. It is an important game, and I know that maybe it's silly to throw that word around, but it is an important game. They've all said wonderful things about it, and I'm going to stop there. That's my number 6, Dominion.
It's good stuff. I keep forgetting I'm after Mike. My number 6 is my, if you want the economic experience, I guess. My number 6 is Power Grid. Now, Power Grid, again, is not a game that I have anymore, even, but it's a game that I think is very robust experience. It's one of those games you should try to see if this is the kind of setting, environment, sort of a play experience that you might enjoy. Because playing that, I think, is going to open a whole new avenue of game style to you if you find this is an interesting experience. it's all about the economy in the game. The math is in there. You have to be mindful of where you're spending your bucks, what you are bidding on, how you are managing resources to fuel up your power plants, and then light up these cities. And another reason I think it's a good one to try at least once is because within Power Grid, I think there are so many different mechanisms that even if you don't enjoy Power Grid, you might come away thinking, you know what I really liked was connecting the cities. I liked that part of it. Great. There's lots of games that do that with more specificity than Power Grid. Or I really liked the bidding thing. That was neat. Fantastic. There's a whole world out there for you. So I think this is a good launching off point as well. So there you go. Power Grid, my number 6.
All right, Z's making me feel a little better here because this doesn't happen very often, but I'm not sure about my number 6 pick. Like I almost feel like I should take it off the list. I'm just gonna say it.
You may delete it? So, I can delete it real quick.
Now, number 6 is Commands and Colors Ancients, and I think maybe Memoir 44 would have been a better pick, but I think everyone should. The problem with Memoir 44, and the reason I picked Command and Colors Ancients, they're very similar games. They're light war games. And I think everyone should try one of these at least once. The reason I didn't put Memoir 44 is because there's still people who may have had relatives in that war. And so that could be a personal thing, and I would never tell you to play that game. But other than Mike, none of us have relatives who were around in the Command and Colors Ancients time frame. So it's a little easier for us to do that.
You mean Mike was there, or he has relatives?
No. It was his grandpa. I wouldn't ever call Mike old.
No, clearly.
Okay.
But listen,
so why are you doubting
Write that down,
yourself,
Chris.
Tom?
Would you write that on your list?
I doubt it
Tom was mean to me. Put it on your list.
Because
Tom is great.
I'm also keeping a list, Mike. I just don't put it up in front of the thing every time. No, but I think everyone should try some sort of war game out. I know they're not everyone's style, and some people, again, may even have a problem with the idea of war in general, and I get that too. But I can't take that into account for every game here. You might have a problem with something or other. Sure. But I think we talk a lot about war games, and this is the one you should try to see if it's maybe your style, or also the command card system. Yeah. And so that's why I put this one on here. And Command and Colors Ancients. I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. That train of thinking makes sense. You should. I mean, there are lots of people who all they do is play war games. You should dip a toe in that and see if it's see what you think of it. See what they do. I mean, again, their experience is probably something more in depth and heavy than that, but you should dip a toe in it.
And
good things out about everyone.
This might be a little stretch, but this is like the simple of the block war game system, right? Where you got blocks, and people might even be more comfortable with that based on playing, as silly as it sounds, Stratego as a kid or something. It kind of has a familiarity of moving blocks. So I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, I've not tried this one myself, but I'm interested in it. And seeing that it's on your list, I might be a little bit more inclined now.
This is a great support group. Thank you all.
Terrible
for sharing.
I'm just kidding. For my number 5, this is a game that is just straight fun. So for this one, you're going to have to be like, take off of your gamer glasses or your snobbery of like, I need heavy in-depth Euros or all the combat in the world. This is a game that's just silly, and I wanted a good, fun dexterity game on here. This is a game you should try at least once, and that is Rhino Hero. You should play it at a con, enjoy the stacking gigantic tower craziness that Rhino Hero is. I think this is a fun, interesting, basically it's like the opposite of Jenga where you're building things up instead of pulling things out. And it's got interesting mechanics. And I've had a blast playing this with a wide variety of people. building gigantic towers as things go up and trying to not be the one that knocks it over and loses the game. This game is a ton of fun and is super silly fun, and you should try it at least once. Rhino Hero.
Man, Z's incredulous face is like at 100%
he didn't take
today.
he didn't take off his snob glasses. Come on.
I
Man,
got
he is
it. I
on
mean,
fire, man.
first of all, Rhino Hero is not the opposite of Jenga, okay? The opposite of Jenga is climbing up a tree, removing its branches, and then nailing the branches into the trunk of the tree. That's the opposite of Jenga.
All I hear
played
is snob,
Jenga?
snob, snob.
Now, Roy, I disagree with you slightly, but it's not for the same reason. I think you can watch Rhino Hero and realize if it's for you or not.
It's
you
not
don't
the same.
actually need to play it.
It's not the same.
No,
Great
Holding
point,
your breath.
Tom. You know what?
To make sure
Give
you can
Tom
put the thing
2
on
points
there.
for that. Check.
Ah,
you do
He's
not
a
actually have to
100%
play
right.
it to know. You can watch a video of someone playing it and you'll know.
it's so much
That's
fun.
100%
It's so much
true,
fun.
Roy. Come on.
Tom, Z, don't like fun. We know. We already know. So.
I just said the game is fun.
I'm
And
just
I
saying.
think it's a game. No, I'm kidding. I like it too. I don't know if I don't think I would put it on this list. There's a lot of stacking kind of games. Pick one of them, I guess.
Best one.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right, so for my number 5, Roy and I have crossed over on the same number with the same idea before. Here we couldn't be more polar opposites. This is my heavy game pick for the list, so my number 5 is Mombasa. This is an Alexander Pfister game.
I won't do it.
Never mind, Roy. You're good.
I won't try it once.
Bring back the Rhino Hero.
I'm not going to try it once. I'm just telling you.
Here's why. I think that this is a game that is complex in some of its upfrontness, but once you start playing it, the complexity goes away in some of the... okay. It's smoother than it seems like it should be. This is a good step if you want to try and play more complex games that have a lot of different mechanisms, mashed up together. Z's and Tom's incredulousness is very distracting.
I had a peanut butter joke in my head when you said it's more smooth than you think it would be. That's all that was. That is all that was. Okay? Keep going.
It's
Spectacular. All right.
It's a strange mix of worker placement and deck building game and area control on this map. And I think that if you're at all familiar with those separate mechanisms, putting them together into a single kind of more complex game works really well. I think it's a game where you're playing the other players at the table as much as you are playing the mechanisms of it. And I think that this is a good game to see if you really enjoy the idea of positive interactions, where to really advance how well you're doing in the game, you're going to have to benefit other people as well. You can share how well you're doing with the 4 different companies that are out on the map because you don't control any company yourself. I think that it does some very unique things that people are going to try once and say either, yes, bring on more, or no, that was good, I'm going to go back to playing nothing but Rhino Hero. And
Can you
so for
stack
that-
the buildings?
you
But
absolutely
Chris, on a
can.
serious note, but why this one over the other ones, even like other Pfister games?
Now, when you say other ones, Tom, do you mean every Euro game ever made?
No, come on. I'm talking to Chris, not you.
Is that a bell sound? That just
I thought I heard a bell.
That's so weird. Like
The round's
every time
over.
Tom
Time out,
is
man.
like,
Ding.
Well, what other games do you mean, Tom?
No, like even the other Pfister games. Why pick Mombasa over, like, let's say Great Western Trail or Maracaibo? I mean, no, I'm being serious. I'm asking, like, why is this the game you picked? I
It's
get
more-
that you think people should play a heavier game like this, but why this one?
It's more interactive. It's less about making your own little loop that works best for you. It's more about the combined experience that you have with the other players at the table, where you push up against how other players are pulling. And I think that and also I still do think that once you get past the rules up front, the game plays smoother than those other ones.
Oh, goodness.
Okay.
All
So that's my
right.
controversial number 5, Mombasa.
Hey, you know what else is controversial, Chris? apps in board games. Roy was just talking about it. My number 5 is my app integrated experience, Z. My number 5 is Chronicles of Crime. And here's the thing. I get that there are a lot of people that don't want app integration with board games. My personal opinion is you maybe need to get over yourself a little bit. But I would say this. If you're going to have an app integrated board game, it's best if that app allows the game to exist. Now, Roy actually mentioned Mansions of Madness, second edition, which you could argue you don't need the app because first edition didn't have an app.
They're completely different games.
That's what was getting ready to say, is that second edition is exponentially better because of the app, because it creates an experience you couldn't have had without it. You could not play Chronicles of Crime without the app. It is something that is wholly unique in the board gaming sphere. You may hate it. I've heard people say, it's an activity, it's not a game. Well, okay, but you should try it. You should try it at least once. It is an experience you've never had before. I mean, I guarantee it. I can't guarantee you'd like it, but it is different. This game could not exist without app integration. I think it's a neat thing to bring into board gaming. You should try it at least once and put away some of your initial fears of getting apps into your board games. Try it at least once. Chronicles of Crime.
Very unique.
That's a great pick for this list. I agree 100%. All right, my number 5 is a crossover with, I think earlier Mike had it on his list. My number 5 is Crokinole. I think again, it's a really formative dexterity experience. It's one you should try, even if you have tried other dexterity games. Most of them are not flicking games, especially not in this format. Most dexterity games are about stacking something, whatever you're doing, Jenga-esque games. I think Crokinole and other games like it are a slightly different flavor. I could see you liking one kind of dexterity and not the other. So you should try this one. It's also a very social game. I like that about it. You're sitting around this beautiful board, ideally. Everybody's laughing it up. There's something electric and energetic about sitting around with 3 other people and playing Crokinole. I love that experience, actually. I don't even feel like I'm playing board games. It's a different vibe.
Like ping pong.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different thing. It's a different get-together. And I think ping pong's a great example, Tom. Yeah, I love that feeling. So, Crokinole, try it.
All right, my number 5 is, I guess you can call it a classic now. It's 20 years old, and that is the grand old daddy of the Euro games, and that's Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, now there's definitely a lot of talk about Puerto Rico. It's definitely been on the message boards lately. The forums. Started.
Wow, you went back, baby.
I went back 20 years. But there's so many things that this game does, and I'm still amazed when I go to conventions and I offer to teach this to people, the number of folks who haven't played this. The reason I mention this one is because it's 2021, and I find that there's a new generation of gamers who have not played this one, and I think it provides both a good experience. It gives you a unique look at a game that literally was a pretty big linchpin of the modern Euro game movement. And I think it's good for those reasons. So my number 5, Puerto Rico.
All right, my number 4, I really wanted to add a game that I felt decently accessible, but also had a lot of cool engine building stuff in it. And I think this is a game that if you're interested in crazy engine building at all, you should try this game at least once, because it definitely has engine building in spades, and that is Gizmos. Gizmos is a game where you're building up, you have lots of simple actions, but as the game progresses, your actions become more and more complex because you're able to combo lots of actions together. So it's like at the beginning of the game, you're just picking these cool little spheres, and you're using those spheres to buy different cards. But now when you buy this type of card, it lets you pick a sphere as well. And now when you pick that color sphere, you get to take another one. And when you take that color sphere, you get to build a thing. And then it can just have these crazy combos and things that happen in the game that can help you build this efficiency engine to build up points, and you're trying to build these crazy, insane machine contraptions, and even it just gives you like a solid engine building experience. So if you're into a game that has just engine building in spades, I think Gizmos is one you should try at least one time to just get that experience of comboing all these cool things together. I really enjoy games that have lots of combos in it, so my number 4 is Gizmos.
Really good pick. I agree with that.
Is it your number 4?
No, unfortunately not. My number 4 trades in those spheres for cubes. My number 4 is a game called Hansa Teutonica. It, to me, is kind of like how Tom talks about Puerto Rico as you know, it's an old, dry Euro theme and everything. This game does so much with very few components. You have a desk, and you have some cubes and some discs. The discs are the fancy part of it. And it strikes Z right in the heart, I could see. This game for me is... The reason I would say that I think that everyone should try this is, one, it's not very appealing. It has a horrible cover. It doesn't have good aesthetic or anything to it. But the play of it is very smooth, and I think that people should experience one of these older games that maybe they never got around to trying, kind of like Tom mentioned with Puerto Rico, that is... It's flawless, I think, right? There's not like a part of it where I say that should be changed, this should be, updated or anything. I just love this game. It has positive interaction. It has negative interaction. You are not playing your own little game. Everything is out on this board together, pulling it off of your player board, and the players have to butt heads, and you will. And I think that it's a game that can make you angry at your friends and also pull off great moves. So for that reason, my number 4, Hansa Teutonica.
You know what it is, Chris? I think I finally figured out why I'm having a hard time with some of these picks. I think it's because the way you understood the list, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's more top 10 games you should try at least once that you were definitely not planning on trying.
It's a mix of that. Yeah, a little bit.
Like F knows. People would look it over. So you're saying, no, come back, try it. Hansa Teutonica, definitely should look that over. But you're saying, no, you should try it once. You might like it. I mean, you might. Right?
Top 10 list. Chris is having a really hard time talking people into playing once with him.
Also, welcome to the show, Chris. I hope you're enjoying the top 10 with us.
Trial by fire.
Let me think that over, Z. I think that might be an interesting point of how it could have colored my picks.
Okay.
All right. Well, my number 4 is in a similar vein, and it's also a crossover with one Mr. Tom Vassell. This is what I'm calling my, wait for it, Euro experience. This is Catan. Now,
I didn't say Catan. You crossed over with
Z,
Garcia.
crossover
and you
with
told
Mr.
me you were going to yell at me at this point.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not going to yell at you, but I'm going to disagree with what you said about it. I'm trying to remember what you said so I can disagree.
I basically said that I think everyone's playing Catan, so I don't need to convince them.
Okay, no, I disagree with that because while I think that everyone that's watching this video is aware of Catan, it's ubiquitous, right? It is ubiquitous in the hobby. I don't necessarily believe that a lot of people that came into the hobby now were necessarily through Catan. They may have been playing other Euro games and they've heard of Catan, they're aware it exists, but they haven't gone back and play it. Now, it does happen to be the game that got me into the hobby, and I still vividly remember the mind-blowing aspect of I had never heard of a victory point. The whole concept of victory point was completely foreign to me. There were so many aspects of what we take for granted as modern board gamers that were mind-blowing, mind-shifting ideas when I played Catan for the first time. And I just think that it's a game that if you have not played it, even if you've so-called moved on to the bigger and better games, and don't get me wrong, there were games released last week that are probably better overall modern designs, Euro designs, than Catan. But see where a lot of these ideas really took root. See what game brought in so many people into this hobby, myself included. I know that it sounds maybe a little pretentious to call a game important, but Catan is important. It's an important game. I think it is still worthy of playing now at least once, even if you came in through another game, if Everdell brought you in or if something else brought you in and you're really excited about the hobby now and you don't even want to think about Catan because that's from 20 years ago. Try it. Play it at least once so you can get an idea of where the history came from. That's my argument, Tom.
I'm not going to say it's wrong. You're fine.
Okay.
All right. Guys, the rest of my list takes a dramatic shift here from number 4 on, and that is because there's a strong move here from my first 2 talking points, classics and great examples, to just things that are different, that I think are unique experiences you might really like, you might absolutely despise, but you should sample them. And with that, we begin number 4 here is Time Stories. Time Stories is a game that makes an interesting first impression. It certainly did more so back when it first came out than now, especially if you're on the up and up with all of these escape room style games. But I think Time Stories, for what it does as a first impression, as a sampler plate, I think it's very interesting. It's a gorgeous game. It feels mysterious. It is captivating. There is something about it where you feel you are taking part in something different. Mm-hmm. And I like that aspect of it. So I think you should try it out. See if it's the kind of game that you like. And again, much like Power Grid, if you do, and you're not on board all of these escape room style games, exit the game, unlock, all that, then this might be a good avenue towards those games. Time Stories, my number 4.
I wish I could go back in time and play this for the first time again. If one of those Men in Black things to like erase my memory happened, like this would be a game that I would be the first to go back in line and play again, not knowing anything about. So I think the first impression this one gives you is a lot of fun.
I would also like to erase Roy's first time playing Time's Up from my memory.
Time's Up? This is not Time's Up. This is Time Stories.
Or Time Stories.
My number 4.
Were you just not listening, or?
No, I got caught up in Roy's going back in time. Sorry. My number 4 is viticulture. I'm just going to jump right into it. Viticulture.
Wow.
And this is why, because I think everybody should try a worker placement game. And everyone should probably try a Stonemeyer game. I know it sounds silly to the company, but their games are a bit of events. But I was thinking, man, what's a good worker placement game to put on the list? And this one seems pretty solid because it includes a whole lot of different things. It includes a little bit of an economy. It includes some unique ideas. It includes cards that change the game. And I thought it has enough going on in there that it felt like if you're going to play one of these games, this one brings a lot of ideas to the table. And then if you don't like it, I would imagine there's a lot of worker placement games you wouldn't enjoy. And if you do like it, well then, oh boy, you got a whole world ahead of you. So, viticulture, my number 4.
All right.
All right, my number 3. So I really enjoy games, and there are certain games that really got me into the hobby. I played a ton of role-playing games and CCGs, but when I played several of these style games that were like teamwork cooperative with a trader in it, they really brought me into the hobby. And my number 3 is Shadows over Camelot. This is a game that is not super hard to play because you're mostly trying to go on these different quests and create different poker hands and working as a team to keep the castle from being overrun and keeping bad things from happening. But you're trying to fulfill all the quests, but there could be a traitor hidden among you. And there are several games that do this, but I feel like this is one of the roots of where this whole concept came from. And it's definitely an enjoyable game to go back to and try at least one time, just because it's so much fun to jump into a game of Shadows over Camelot. So hey, I know this game's hard to get a hold of, but go to a Dice Tower convention and you'll be able to play Shadows over Camelot from our library, and it'll be a ton of fun. And I mean, I'll play with you.
Roy will play this with everyone who wants to play.
I mean, bring on the line. Come on, guys. Let's do this. But I really enjoy Shadows over Camelot.
It's a good pick, Roy. And I think the fact that you are playing poker hands is another thing that would make it more accessible to people. That's a really good pick.
I was thrown up in between this and Battlestar Galactica, and I just think Battlestar Galactica, even though I enjoy that game more, it's too long of an experience for people to say that people have to play at one time. I think this gives you a lot of that feel, but does it in a shorter and more accessible time frame.
It's also likely more of a divisive theme, Battlestar Galactica. Some people are like, I don't care for the show or sci-fi.
My only concern with this pick is it's not so easy to get a hold of this game.
Right. That's why you should play a friend's copy once, you know?
Sure, it's just harder to tell people they should play it if it's harder to get to. But if you're using it to get people to come to Dice Tower conventions, Roy, good on you.
Let's go. Retreat, Cruise, West, East. I'll play it with you once at each of those.
All right. My number 3, I'm actually going to go ahead and I'll say that I will invite anyone to play this game with me because I love it that much, and it's very fun. My number 3 is a game called Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a very simple dice rolling game. You roll dice, you assign all of a single number out to a different casino, and you're trying to get majorities. I love majorities. I think this is one of the best games to teach that kind of concept. There's a few little twists and turns in it, but it's very simple. And I think, Z, to your point of maybe the way that I approach this game is a little bit of more focused towards people who play games on the regular, right? So Mombasa is not a game to bring to Grandma's house and say, Grandma, Chris said you have to play this game. But, you know, people who play games regularly, I think that some people will thumb up their nose a little bit towards this game because it's so light, because there's not deep strategy to it. I think it does offer a bit more fun than it actually looks like. But also, if you're, you know, this is one of my games that I think has the most wide appeal. If you can play this with people who play nothing but Yahtzee, and people say, I think that this might be like better Yahtzee or anything. So that's my number 3 pick, Las Vegas, or the Vegas Dice Game, or Vegas Royale, or whichever edition you find. I think they're all great.
Is this why this is in the office?
I brought it by to see if anyone wanted to play it the other day, because I want to play it. It's been a long time since I played it.
Got it.
I should maybe play this at least once.
I'm saying that.
You are. Yeah, I've played it. It's a good call. All right. So I took my own advice for number 3 this very week.
I am
confused. This was a game I knew that I needed to play at least once, and I had not played it until this week. My number 3.
You put a game on the list you hadn't played.
I absolutely did. It's what I'm calling my asymmetrical chaotic experience. My number 3 is Cosmic Encounter. I was familiar enough with the game. I had seen people play the game. I had not played the game myself. I feel like, and this, who else had this already on their list? Z did. Yeah, no. I put this on the list before I had even played it, but I absolutely knew.
Me too.
No, I knew without a shadow of a doubt I was going to be playing this game, even if it hadn't been, slotted during this event. Because I knew this was a game I needed to play, and I feel like everyone needs to play it at least once. It's a game that is very unique. It has an experience like no other. Not just the asymmetrical nature of it, the fact that you've got all of the interactions with the player, the negotiations, all of these things I think are something that is done better here, or at least differently here, the most pure version of it than anything I've ever seen anyway. So I have no qualms at all about putting a game on this list that I hadn't played before. Because look, I knew beforehand that I had to play this at least once. Everyone said, Tom would talk about playing Cosmic. Every time Tom would talk about playing a game of Cosmic, what was the first thing that came to my mind? I need to play that game. I know I need to play that game. I need to play it. And I feel that is the case for everyone else. You should try it at least once.
You're making me think of an interesting alternate sister list, which is instead of top 10 games everyone should play at least once, it's top 10 games I should play at least once.
Yes.
Yeah.
I could fill that list out.
Played.
It's a good list.
It's an interesting list, Tom. Think about it. Write it in a little piece of paper. Put it in your hat like you do.
I feel like Mike rewrote the timeline here. I was just shook. I was like, is this an error? I was like, did Chris mess up the list? I was so confused. And I'm like,
there we go.
He put a game he hadn't played on the list. That's
Absolutely.
crazy.
Absolutely. I think for this list, it works.
All right, well, my number 3 is a game that actually hasn't come out yet. Play it. I'm doubling down.
There you go.
No, my number 3 is definitely going to be the one that I think most people are going to go, what? Why would you put that on the list? Because it's bizarre. And I doubt you're going to play it very many times. But you should play it at least once. It's such a cool piece of tech. I'm talking about Drop Mix from Hasbro. You should try Drop Mix. Don't take the list out. Drop Mix is an
I just played this the other day,
apparatus.
actually.
It's a strange thing you should mess with. It's this apparatus that you play cards on, and they have a near field chip, whatever that's called. And
RFID.
What is it?
RFID.
Yeah, there you go. It has one of those, and it'll read the card and play a piece of music from some popular song. The cards have like just the bass line or just the vocals or whatever, and you are building music together. The software will incorporate these things into one another. There's a few modes in there. A couple of them are kind of lame. There's a head-to-head one, which I think is an all-right card game. A mass market card game, but it's neat and it's just mind-blowing the way this thing works. I really enjoy it. It's again, it's not the best game in the world. That's not what I'm saying. I don't think this is going to open new avenues. There's nothing else like it, not really. But you should try it to see what it's like to try something way outside the box. Drop Mix, my number 3.
That's super unique. All right.
Yeah.
Well, now my stuff's going to seem super mundane. All right, so I'm going to put a heavier game on the list, and I don't go with Fister route. I would think everyone should try a Rosenberg game or an Uwe Rosenberg game at least once because they are a big part of the hobby. So I'm putting the easiest one, I think, for people to jump into, and that would be Caverna. Agricola. Huh?
Patchwork's not easier to get into than Caverna?
Oh, no, the good games.
Bonanza?
No, Patchwork that's a different genre. I'm talking about the heavier,
big game.
more involved
Big game.
games.
Got
I
it.
think it's easier than, let's say, Agricola and Feast for Odin and Le Havre and all that. I think Caverna, you go to spots, you get stuff. And it's a big, grandiose game. And you know what? It's very possible when you're done playing it, you'll go, that was too much. Fine, but I think you should give it a whirl. And I think if you play Caverna, and I'm not talking about the whole Caverna versus Agricola type stuff, maybe you'll like one better than the other. But what I mean is, I think if you play Caverna, you'll have an idea like, hey, I like these kind of big, grandiose, lots of resources, lots of things going on games. And maybe you'll play it and go, interesting, but that's about as far as I want to go. I feel like it's on that line. Like, for example, I know that, Z, you thought it was fine. I don't think you raved about it, but you didn't hate playing Caverna.
Right. Yeah, I thought Caverna. I think Caverna's pretty good. I do like it. It's definitely a game I won't play often, but I think you're right that it's right on that seesaw of I want to keep going heavier. I want to back down from this. I think you're right that it's near the middle there. Yeah.
And it's also a game you can play, and while there's a lot of choices and stuff, you can make wild choices, and you might not win, but you'll feel good about what you've done. You're like, I don't know but look at all these sheep, that sort of thing. So Caverna, my number 3.
All right, my number 2 is a great cooperative game where everybody works together to get 5 planets, and that is Cosmic Encounter. This is a great game of working together as a team and trying to get 5 planets at the exact same time.
You're a troll, Zorroy. You're a troll.
I love Cosmic Encounter. It has a great history, and the game has been around since longer than I've been alive, and it's a blast to play. There are so many crazy powers. This is basically the game that like started off asymmetrical starting points in games. Like, this is a game that has lots of history behind it, and it's a lot of fun with interesting negotiations and has alternate win conditions and crazy fantastical things. This game is always chaos, but it's a blast to play and entertaining every single time I've played it. That is Cosmic Encounter. It's been a crossover with other people, and I still think there's one more crossover left. And that is why it is my number 2 Cosmic Encounter.
Roy, would you call it an asymmetrical, chaotic experience?
I would call it an
Because I
asymmetrical cooperative game is what I would call it.
Balderdash.
That's on
That's
my
my
list
number
too.
Balderdash.
Oh, come on.
My number 2 is going to be the most caveated game on this list, right? I'm just going to go ahead and say it, and I think I might accidentally cause one of you to retch. My number 2 is a game called Through the Ages, because this is the heaviest game on my list. It's giant. It's a civilization game, and it really is a civilization game. It's not a civilization game distilled down to cards in an hour, or a civilization game distilled. It's just big and long, but this has one of the best app versions of a game that's ever existed. I think that everyone should try the game. If you want to try it as the physical board game, or if you want to try it as the app, either way, I think that it's an experience worth having. It's a game worth playing where you get to see, so to speak, a bit of the human experience, right? There's a lot about the game that is very thematic, despite the fact it's really just pushing cubes around. But building up from a very simple kind of empire into a larger one, competing with the other forces, in choosing to invest in military to defend yourself, or to attack other people, or to just build up your civilization more prestigiously. There's so many tough decisions in it, and I think that it requires that length for that all investment to feel worth it. I think people should try it. My first experience was with the app, which after playing several times made me want to try the physical board game, and that might not be for you, but my number 2 is Through the Ages.
I
I'm
think
not
it's a
gonna give you
solid
any
pick,
garbage.
Chris.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
All right.
Who did you think I was going to give a rash to? Mike?
I
Not
don't know.
me.
I said Mombasa, and one of you almost fell out of your chair. So
No, that's
Well,
because...
Mombasa is just another Euro game. That's the problem with
Yeah.
Mombasa. I could have said Crown of Imara. I shouldn't put Crown of Imara on this list. Who cares about Crown of Imara? Just another Euro game. That's how Mombasa kind of feels to me. I think Through the Ages stands out from the other Euro. It's a different thing. It's this big. It's not about being big or being epic or whatever. It's about being, again, I hate to say important, but
Yeah, that's true.
I can't another word, and Through the Ages feels important. It feels like you're going to reveal something about yourself by playing it. I think playing Mombasa doesn't, unless you just happen to get to it first before you did 800 other Euros. Does that make sense?
I guess I can see that. I'll mull that over.
No, you won't. Sounds like you're trying to sell me life insurance.
He's already forgot it.
All right. My number 2 is what I'm calling my cooperative experience, and that is
Cosmic Encounter again?
Pandemic.
Oh.
Pandemic. Now, here's the thing. Tom's going to
Terrible.
make the same argument that he did probably with Catan, which is that everyone's watching
Don't
this
have to say anything.
has played Pandemic or some iteration of Pandemic, because there have been a number of different versions of Pandemic out there. And look, that may be true. I think that's probably more likely that everyone that's watching this has played some kind of Pandemic, because there's been so many versions rather than Catan. But if you have not, you absolutely need to kind of see where the cooperative game revolution began. And I really do feel that's what Pandemic was. It was a revolution in board gaming. It went from no cooperative games to an explosion of cooperative games. And it's hard to argue that that core system could be any more elegant than it is. It is just a brilliant core mechanism to build a whole family of games around. that core mechanic hasn't changed much. You know why? Because it doesn't need to. It's nearly perfect. So Pandemic is a game you really should play at least once, and it really doesn't matter which version. I mean, I say just go with the granddaddy, go with the original, but you need to try a Pandemic game if you have not. Tom, you put Legacy on there, and I think that's a great pick for a different reason. But I'm just sticking with Pandemic, so that's my number 2.
This one definitely just missed my list. Like, this was on there, and then it slid off. But, like, this was one that I was definitely going to pick. Pandemic is a great pick, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, my number 2. Again, if you want more traditional picks, you can flip the list over, and then you end up at the bottom with Dominion and Catan and chess. Okay, I'm doing this the other way. My number 2 is Cryptid. It actually got mentioned earlier by Tom. He just said it in an offhand. But my number 2 is Cryptid. Cryptid is strange. It's kind of Clue-esque, in which you are trying to figure out a specific spot where a monster lives or whatever on a board. It's very abstract. It's hexes, colors, and then denotations of things. Little pieces that are going to let you know that are referential. I think it engages a different part of the mind than a lot of games do. It stands out from its uniqueness. I think it's also a really interestingly designed game. The fact that you can play so many different times, and no matter like who you're playing with, no matter how you set up the game, as long as you set it up correctly, there's always one correct answer and every other space on the board is wrong. Like the math behind that, the logistics of putting that together, I can't fathom. But I like the discovery nature of it. The narrowing it down, the asking somebody, could it be here, the monster? And they say yes or no, and you're like, that eliminates this possibility. My area shrinks. It's neat. You should give it a go. Even if you don't necessarily like Clue or like those kinds of games, this one might activate a different part of the brain for you. You might enjoy it. Cryptid, my number 2.
Is there anyone here other than me that has not played this?
I haven't played this, and I would actually really like to play it.
This should be a Catchapalooza. This should definitely be a Catchapalooza list game because I wanted to play this.
I want to play it as well.
It's added to the list.
Beautiful. All right. My number 2 is the first in the history of the Dice Tower 5-way crossover. That is Dominion.
Yeah.
All right. For the same reasons everyone else said, except for the utter nonsense that Mike spit out about there being 250,000 better versions in this game.
Sorry,
it is still
150,000.
a great deck builder game. But yes, it brought a new genre. But again, this is one I think a lot of people, especially people who just gotten hobby the past 5 years, have missed, I think. And you played games that use deck building or have deck building in, but Dominion distills it down to its purest form and works really well still. Grab one of the expansions out there, stick it in with the base game, and you had a really great experience. So Dominion, my number 2. I'm the winner. It was the highest.
All right, my number 1 game that people should play at least one time. I really like this game. I think it is a unique experience, and that is Blood Rage. Blood Rage is a game that basically you're trying to draft stuff, and I have no clue what's going on my computer. Hold on just a second. I'm super distracted. Okay. You're trying to draft cards and basically set up this entire engine of things that you're going to do on your turn. You have like little bitty combos. You're trying to think, oh, I need this kind of cards. Oh, I need to complete these quests. And just by the looks of it, you might think that this is a game where you're just trouncing and trashing each other the entire time. There is some trouncing and trashing, but losing can be just as powerful as winning in this game. And figuring out how to put all of your pieces in the correct place to score the most victory points or glory in the game is very important. So even if you're off-put by the fact that this looks like a very head-to-head combat-y theme, you might really enjoy the combos and victory point gathering that there is in Blood Rage. I think Blood Rage is a blast to play, and even if it looks like something you might not be into, you should try it at least once, just because it is that solid of a game, and it looks great and is great. Blood Rage, my number one.
Yeah, that's a good pick, Roy, because a lot of people might have their expectations reversed with it. So I like that choice for that.
I agree. I think this is one where the looks are very deceiving. There's a lot of miniature clashing kind of games that look like this one, yet this plays nothing like those games, probably. There's no chucking of dice. This is a weird area control-ish card drafting game. It's something else. So, yeah, that's a good one.
All right, my number one. I've been thinking about what you said earlier, Z. I think that there is.
Here we go. You know what? I'd like to. I want to offer a formal apology.
There we go.
For what I've said. Okay, first of all, this is the first thing I'm gonna do. I own the thing. All right, get off my back about not liking Mombasa. I like Mombasa just fine. Secondly, I apologize to Chris for everything I may or may not have said or implied. Anyway,
you should have seen what was happening when the numbers were playing.
No, we're kidding. What is it, Chris? Go ahead.
I think you're right. I think that there's definitely a coat of paint on my list of games that I think people have missed or have misconstrued or something to that effect where
it's fine. It's valuable. I mean, it's more valuable than me putting chess on the list. Who hasn't heard of chess? Right?
No. So it's just a different flavor.
Thing, I think is what it is.
Yeah. And so with that in mind, I didn't pick games with like major historical impact or anything because I'm going to pick a game that I think is pretty overlooked. And my number one pick is Broom Service. This is a game that...
You have been pushing this since you got here.
You like this game,
Room Service. Why have you brought it in, Chris?
I've not brought it in. But
it's not the first time he's brought it up.
Oh, okay.
Because this is a unique experience. This is one of the most interesting action selection drivers I've seen in a game. That's almost a bit of a trick-taking type thing where you follow actions that other players lead out with. And sometimes, but you get to choose which 4 actions out of 10 in the game you'll have. Therefore, sometimes you want to pick things other people will pick. Sometimes you want to pick things that are unique. I think it makes you think about your turns and the other players at the table in a different way than any other game does. I think that this game didn't get enough love. It does bring something very interesting and original to the table. So I would hope that everyone could play this game at least once. So it's my number one, Broom Service.
You're right that it got overlooked, and this is like the 3rd version of this game already, because it came out.
Look, if it's got overlooked 3 times, I think we have to accept maybe it's not that great of a game.
It got a big award, didn't
Woo!
it?
So did Niagara.
Touche.
All right. My number one, when this list was proposed, I don't remember whose idea it was, but when this list was proposed, this is the game that shot to my mind, and so it's my number one. This is what I'm calling my big epic experience, Roy. This is Twilight Imperium 4th edition because that's the one that I've played. It's the most recent version. It's the one you can get right now. Twilight Imperium, to me, I feel like typifies this list. It's the type of game, just by its very nature, how big, how long, how grandiose, that you probably aren't going to be playing every week. You may only play it one time. I've only played it once so far, and I will tell you, I'm not sure if I'll play it again. I had a fantastic experience. But just knowing my gaming lifestyle, I don't know if I'll get a chance to play it again, but boy, am I glad that I did. I'm really glad that I can now say, I get it. I get it now. I know why this game is so popular. I know why it has such an ardent fan base. I know what sets it apart from other games in this hobby. And so, to me, my number one choice for this was always going to be Twilight Imperium 4. It's something you should try at least once.
So just to clarify here, if Mike hasn't played a game and then finally plays it, It makes this list.
No,
He turns right around and judges other people, right? He's one of those guys who's like, I've never had a shrimp po' boy, and then he buys into one. He's like, why aren't you people eating shrimp po' boys?
I had played Twilight Imperium before I made this list. Thank you very much.
Stop judging me, Mike.
I love Twilight Imperium. I think Twilight Imperium is an amazing game, and it's a ton of fun for people that are really big into the giant, long, epic games. But the everyone part of this equation is not really there. I think there's a lot of people that are not going to be able to enjoy this the same way that somebody that wants to sit around and have this huge, long story play out. And I don't think you should force those people into it. I got your back, Z.
No, I agree with you, but I guess what I'm saying is I do think that there's an underlying assumption I had that this is everyone who might be watching this video.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone who might be watching this video should probably try it because
So including the people in the video should try it?
Even I'm in the video, I won't try it, Mike.
Well, you should. And you know what you should do next, Z?
What?
You should eat a shrimp po' boy. That's what you need to do.
You said that, Z. He doesn't even like shrimp. I can't even.
True. You're a shrimp hater.
Listen, he hasn't tried a po' boy one time. After he tries it.
I think what we're all going to take away from this list is that Twilight Imperium is no Mombasa.
And
There's no
shrimp
Mombasa.
is delicious. Here we go. My number one is, again, actually, this is a big award winner. Why am I going into this being all apologetic? Try it because it's weird and different. Hanabi is my number one.
Yeah.
You should try Hanabi. Again, you might hate it. Again, you might think this is too outside the box for me. I'm not really feeling the sort of topsy-turvy cooperation happening here, the communication. But it's neat. It's a neat game. You should give it a go. You might discover something you really enjoy. It might open up other avenues towards other games with this limited communication aspect. It's a game that, because it is a small game, I think history has done a great job of burying this one, it seems to me, in just a few years, really. Even though it was not an overlooked game. It was, like I said, it was a game that was popular. It was out there. People talked about it. People played it and then promptly forgot about it. If you haven't heard of it, or it just doesn't come up in your sort of circle of awareness for new games you want to give a go, you should try it. Somebody has it, probably. Give it a go. Hanabi, number one for me.
It won the spiel. I mean, and it's a fantastic pick. A fantastic pick, Z. If I hadn't picked one other game as my cooperative game, this absolutely would have been my choice. Great pick.
I'm not as huge a fan of Hanabi as others, but I think it actually does make this list. Because it is a game you should try. It's different and unique.
Right. It's a really good pick.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I was a little worried about that, mostly because my ranking is less meaningful on this one. I wasn't.
Well, yeah, same. I think
your number one is what?
Well, my number one is actually, I felt pretty strongly about it. I know that you all mentioned Cosmic Encounter, and people are waiting for me to say that. I don't know that Cosmic is for everybody, but I picked this game instead, a descendant from Cosmic Encounter, and that's Magic the Gathering.
Oh!
See, now here's the deal. Again, this is something people make fun of all the time. You don't have to get into it. You can play 2-star decks, but I think everybody should try it at least once. It's such a big part of the hobby. You should know how this collectible card game works. There are so many games that come from this. There's so many mechanisms from board games that come from Magic. Again, the thing here is at least once, I think you should give it a whirl.
You should probably not play from a competitive Magic player.
Well, yeah,
learn from them.
Sure.
Don't learn from them. Really. I mean, play with somebody who plays Magic casually, and they're not just saying that. If that's the case, I agree with you, Tom. I think you should be aware of how Magic works and how it plays.
This is kind of in my same group as earlier when I mentioned Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
It's this same thing. Again, my whole point here was to make you a well-rounded gamer. I think collectible card games are not for everybody, for sure. I don't play them much myself these days, but I can't tell you how many games in board gaming that I immediately understand because I've played Magic the Gathering, and how much where I am at a board gamer has been influenced by that.
And you'll never find a game with a more willing fan base to teach you then that friend of yours who played Magic 8 years ago and has like 5 decks lying around is like, please let me play with someone.
I thought
Do
about putting
not
this on my
learn
list.
from that guy.
Exactly.
He's a terrible teacher.
I
guarantee you that guy's going to sit down at the table. He's going to be like, oh, you've never played Magic? Yeah, let's try it out. Yeah, you might like it. Here's a deck. Just shuffle that up. And as soon as he puts that deck down on the table, bam! Go. I'm done. I'm hitting you for 12. Go.
All right.
I thought about putting this on the list, but I wasn't worried about them playing it once. I was worried about them playing it 2, 3, 4, 5, 100 million times, and then leaving board gaming completely and having to put a second mortgage on your house and becoming competitive.
Okay,
Magic can be a
wow.
very slippery slope. Stay away from the Magic. I play Magic casually. I play with commons all the time. Magic is fun.
Sound like a recovering Magic player. What's wrong with you?
I totally would have had Magic and D&D on my list too, but I stuck to board games because, board game channel. But,
Your first
really?
deck of Magic is
so
for
Magic the
free. I'm going
Gathering's
to give you this
not a
deck
card
for
game?
free.
It is a collectible card game. It's a different section of the hobby because if you play Magic, you can't afford to play anything else. That is for sure.
That is not true. If you get hooked on Magic, you can't afford anything
It's real
else.
easy to happen. I've been there.
You should try it out. Like, you should be aware of how the game works.
All right,
Gateway to other things. I'm just telling you.
folks.
That's scary. You make it sound
Just
like
say no
there's
to
a
Magic.
image.
Just say no to Magic.
Say no.
All right, so I asked this question on our Facebook group of the top 10 games people should play, and they went down the route of like gateway games. So
Okay.
this is what we got. We have in 10th place King of Tokyo,
Ooh.
Good.
9th place Quaxaquedlingberg,
Okay.
8 Seven Wonders, which was one I considered.
Yeah, I can see that.
7 Azul. Wait, I think I might have counted wrong. That was 6. Oh, yeah, I said set. Wait. 1, 2, 3,
Start
4, 5,
again.
6, 7, 8, 9. 10 was Splendor. 9 King of Tokyo. 8
Okay.
Quaxaquedlingberg. 7 Seven Wonders.
Azul.
6 Azul.
There we go.
5 Dominion, making it a 6-way crossover.
Play Dominion.
5 Catan. 3 Carcassonne. 2 Pandemic. And 1 Ticket to Ride.
Okay.
Sure.
Definitely a gateway. You should try these if you are not a gamer. That's at all, or kind of want to get started. Which is
Right.
again another way to kind of read the room with
Sure.
this list. All of our lists target something slightly different, and I don't hate when I kind of like it whenever we interpret things like this slightly differently, because then you get a wider range of stuff.
I agree.
Well, folks, before we end here, and this is the end of the Spring Spectacular, let's end the Spring Spectacular with one last contest. This contest is for 2 $15 gift certificates from GameNerds.com. Game Nerds sponsoring the Dice Tower, great place to buy online games. All you have to do to enter this contest is email us at contest@thedicetower.com. In the subject line, put the word NERDZ5, NERDZ5, all together, and you'll have a chance to win. Answer in the body of your email. Just tell us a game everybody should play at least once. Pick one, put it in there, and you have a chance to win. If you're watching this later on, this only lasted a week, so you have a week to enter this contest. Thank you, everybody, for
I'm
watching.
going to pick a winner myself, and you're going to get a copy of Mombasa.
You're going to get a shrimp po' boy. I just want to make sure, contest@dicetower.com, correct? Not the dice. Contest@dicetower.com.
Yes, that's correct. Sorry.
Got it. It's all right.
All right, folks, that's it for the Spring Spectacular. Now, here's what we're going to do. This is a lot of pre-work to make the Spring Spectacular, and it's a lot of work to actually do it, so we will be taking several days off here. There'll be a few of our contributors putting reviews up over the weekend. I'll be doing a Q&A on Monday morning, but we'll pick up again next Wednesday with our crowd surfing. But for now, if you all don't mind, we're going to take a little bit of a rest. Also, we got to prepare to move at some point here, so there's that. I don't know what else to say. Anyone else have anything to say before we leave?
Thank
Would
you,
like to-
everybody, for joining this whole thing. It's been, I've heard a lot of positive from folks that have been watching. And, I guess congrats to you guys who are working from there for putting on an amazing show. I've been watching myself from over here, and you guys are knocking it out of the park. So
I once again
Well,
want to
quick
say
shout out-
thanks to
Go ahead,
Ginny
I was just-
and Lindsay for coming
Yeah,
down.
absolutely.
They're super
Yeah, for
awesome,
sure.
so great to see them down here.
Right?
A quick shout out to all the live chat people. Thank you so much for your support and for having fun with us live.
Thank you to all the sponsors. And I'm going to doubly thank Lindsay because Lindsay puts a lot of this together. Also, we have Amy running the contest and Kenny, who you all don't see very much, but behind the scenes, keeping us all sane and all that. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Roy Kennedy.
I'm Chris Yee.
I'm Mike Delisio.
and I'm Z Garcia.
Have fun gaming.